having like, building relationships organically with other men, godly relationships, right?
Yeah, right.
Me and Kit, I'll say because he before this podcast we were prepping, like, he said, like, when I first met you, I wasn't sure if I liked you. but my head, I was like, I just played it off. And honestly, I felt the same way because
Welcome to Violent Men, Ambassadors of Peace podcast. I'm your host, Kit, joined by my other host,
SP
and
Papa Bear.
And today we're here to bring you another topic about biblical masculinity. Today's topic is the best friend for men. What you'll notice whenever we go through new content, we're basically building upon other topics that we've discussed in the past. So if you've missed anything, just make sure that you go back and watch. But also, if you like what we're doing, go ahead and hit the bell notification icon to be notified of when we release new content. Like, click, and subscribe. If you would like to leave a comment, let us know we're doing well. If you would like to see something, also let us know. So, to the first topic today, we're going to be talking about the best friend for men. And just as a reference point, I would like to kind of go over, a personal story, because people like personal stories. People like relatability,
right.
And they just want to be able to connect with you. So it's important to know a little bit about myself. I'd kind of mentioned in our first podcast about Papa Bear's previous history, and as it relates to camaraderie and iron sharpening iron, him being in the military, and then SP being in sports. My path was a little bit different. I've kind of always been somebody that wants to know everybody, but can't seem to know anybody, any one group. So growing up, I was this guy that really always wanted friendship. Eternity was built into my heart. I was wanting camaraderie. I was wanting friendships. But I didn't really know how to get it because I was always moving around.
Right.
I was interested in all these things. I was kind of like seeing what each people group, had to offer. Was I with the band people? Was I with, the wrestling team? Was I with the debate team? Did I like, hang out with football players? Did I like being around ROTC people? Mm-hmm. I didn't know. I just liked the people. Yeah. So I think the aspect of eternity has always been built inside of me to be in relationships. So as a little boy, I felt like I was kind of at a disadvantage because you always want to feel like you have a belongingness wherever you go. And because we moved around frequently, I was kind of always, grasping and never really feeling like I was being accepted by any one group. So it kind of led me to sharpen my social skills. Yeah. It basically kind of be like a chameleon that can be in any environment and blend in and build relationships. It wasn't until I was an adult, let me take it a step further. It wasn't until I became a believer that I realized like the path that you're on is important in determining who your friends should be. Like, it's good to have the same beliefs and be going in the same direction, but it's also important to choose friends also that can be going in the same direction as you as well.
That's key.
So, one of the things that I did fall into was lifting weights. It started from a point of insecurity. As a young man, I guess I was kind of like dorky, kind of nerdy. I was really into the debate team and cross-examination debate, to be exact. And at one point, I actually wanted to be an attorney and decided to go away from that. But
you see that?
I got into lifting weights, and at some point, got out of high school and looked like a whole new human. Yeah. Once you go through puberty, you start lifting weights, you put on muscle, and naturally, you attract people who think that you're also just like them. For me, I naturally hung around other people who were bodybuilders and things like that, but never fully got into the sport, never fully got immersed. And I kind of had a full circle moment at one point in my life where I was actually at the gym, and it was probably at the peak of my fitness when I was hitting all my personal records, deadlift, squats, bench press, and all these things. And I noticed in the gym one day there was this guy that was watching me, and this is probably one of the most beautiful friendships that I formed unexpectedly. And then we'll get into more about that later. But this guy kept watching me, and I was like, okay, maybe he's like motivated by this. So I said, okay, let me go ahead and go for this PR and deadlift. So I lifted the weight, and the guy comes up to me, and he's just like, oh my gosh, you did an amazing job. And when he walked up to me, I realized I knew who he was. The problem is, whenever I knew him initially, I was at a different point in my life. Whenever I was kind of like lost for my identity, not really knowing where I fitted in.
Yeah.
And this guy just happened to be the bully that used to bully me in high school.
Wow.
Yeah. So in my pride and arrogance, I was like, you look familiar. I think I know you. Do you know me? And he was like, oh, yeah. You look familiar. I said, okay, well, where do you know me from? I was basically trying to dig to kind of like build the suspense to see if he really knew who I was.
Yeah.
So I said, do you really know who I am? And he said, oh, yeah, you look familiar. I said, yeah, we went to the same high school. Oh, yeah. We went to the same high school. I said, yeah. Do you really know who I am? And he was like really puzzled by this continuous questioning because
He had no clue.
he had no idea. I'm just sitting there. I'm like in the best shape I've ever been.
Right.
Yeah.
Stronger than I've ever been. And I'm very capable of giving him the same sort of punishment that he gave me.
Yeah.
But as a violent man, the type of force that I wanted to take doesn't come physically. It comes, spiritually.
Yeah.
So in that moment, God kind of gave me a revelation about who I wanted to become. He said, in a way, he's like, if you want to progress in who you want to become, you have to forgive this guy.
Wow.
I forgave people.
That's good.
I forgave people.
Yeah.
Right? So finally, I left this guy. I took this guy out of his curiosity. I said, you were my biggest bully in high school.
Wow.
And he looks at me, and you can tell like all the air left his lungs because I'm looking at him like, just say something. Just give me any reason to come out of this character, right?
Yeah.
Give me a reason right now. But the guy was just mortified. He goes, man, whenever you knew me in high school, I was doing drugs. I was depressed. I didn't have a father figure. I ended up going to jail after high school. I put on 150 pounds. I didn't even know where my life was going.
Wow.
And I said, I just want to let you know that despite all the pain you put me through, you literally ruined my life. You really did. You ruined my life.
Wow.
And I said, despite all that, I just wanted to let you know I love you and I forgive you. And
How did he take it?
And he goes, man, thank you so much. And then he just tried to continue to explain himself. And I said, I forgive you and I love you and Jesus loves you. And then he goes, I just want to let you know you have a friend in me.
Wow.
That's what he said. It was kind of like a beautiful thing because this guy that caused me so much trauma, like in high school, that caused me to really like question, like, man, am I worthy of anybody's friendship?
Yeah.
Is now like the same guy that I'm building a friendship with. All because I chose to show the love of Jesus and like forgive him. And that was really hard to do.
Yeah.
So this kind of like leads into, friendships as a part of, iron sharpening iron and camaraderie, building friendships,
Milk to meat.
yeah, milk to meat, like growing up spiritually, whenever you feel led to do something that you know is from God, like you need to do it and be obedient because something beautiful can come from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if we truly look at Jesus as being the ultimate man, like our blueprint for masculinity,
Right. Yeah.
and look at what he did for other people, not just men, but like women too. He made himself so low in a way that he was cleaning people's feet, knowing that these people would betray him,
Yeah.
and knowing that he like they could receive forgiveness.
Right.
We also have to forgive though too. You know, so I like this topic a lot because friendship is so paramount in the way that we move. It's important to have, friendships where you're being sharpened, but at the same time, like you also have to know that you're going in the same direction. And those same people that you're going in the same direction with, they're not perfect.
Yeah.
So if you set your standard really high just because you have someone going on the same path, doesn't mean they're always going to be there for you. Doesn't mean they're always going to be the perfect friend for you.
Yeah.
However, if you provide room to forgive them, you provide an opportunity to be forgiven yourself, because at some point you're going to mess up as well. Throughout my I've told the viewing audience here, like I was that guy that was always searching for a group, and even the friends that I've found have let me down in some kind of way, and I've let them down, because as you grow as a human, you add layers to your life. You get older, your hormones change, your desires change for what you want in a friendship. You get married, you have children, friends come out of your life. Some friends may pass away. Your friendships will evolve.
Yeah.
You become more mature. One of your other friends may become more mature, and they'll come back to a place where you can be friends again. So don't exclude anybody from your life. Make sure you're building bridges along the way. Honestly,
Right.
make sure you're building bridges.
Man, that's good stuff. Yeah, you know how they say hurt people hurt people. But you're right. Jesus was the first. He forgave first. He was the first person that forgave, and he set an example of how to be selfless, loyal, compassionate, and forgiving. And we got to model after that.
Yeah.
If you look for reasons in any situation, if you look for a reason in the positive or the negative, you're gonna find it. Whatever you focus on. If you in that situation, if you would have focused on the negative, on the hurt, and how you wanted to, you probably had 100 reasons why to cause harm.
Right.
But instead, you looked at the positive and what God convicted you of, which was to forgive. And you focused on that. Whatever you look for, you're going to find. And you found forgiveness, acceptance, and friendship, because that's what you were looking for.
Yeah.
You weren't looking for the negative.
Yeah.
So whatever you look for, you're going to find. So what are you looking for in friendships? You have to look for genuine friendships. You got to look for vulnerability. And like you mentioned, we had another podcast with camaraderie.
Yeah.
And so if anybody wants to go look for that, we covered about that. That was kind of like beginning of this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's key. Were you going to say something?
I mean, yeah, I think it's it is key, like you said, but I want to harp on just as you're looking for that, best male friend, in the Christian community. It's gonna take time. It's not gonna happen just like that. You have to really like you said, you grew, like do your spiritual growth. Like our last podcast we talked about. From milk to meat, like you had to progress for that forgiveness. You know what I mean? Like that didn't just come, but you grew spiritually and you forgave him on the spot, which ultimately
leveled up.
It's ultimately like kind of let him breathe a little bit, and kind of he told his testimony to why he was that way in that season. So, but yeah, it really just it takes time. Like you don't have to rush just because even if you're like a new believer and new in the faith. It is important for a man to have another male friend, another male bond, in order to grow into your faith and spiritually grow and mature constantly. But go out hang out, you know what I mean, be in the same area, outside of church, and just spend time together and let that grow organically.
Yeah.
Because things can happen, like maybe you'll find out like they're not on the same level you, or like the boundaries are
Right,
kind of
right,
crossed, and they can
right.
lead you into sin. Then
Right.
you have to switch to somebody else. But
Yeah.
I think ultimately, as you're growing spiritually and you're maturing, that you're gonna eventually find that friend that you're gonna do life with, as well as like with y'all.
Yeah.
Like it grew organically. I didn't force any of the relationship, but it only grew because we met outside of church, and we did things together that we all like enjoyed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's a very important key
Yeah.
to finding that best
Yeah.
friend.
It's godly. They're godly
Yeah,
relationships.
and they're
Because
just as equally hungry to pursue God too. And that's very important.
that's
You know?
true.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
human nature, like Kit said, to have that wanting to belong.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It happens in the world. It happens in pop culture. It happens in society. It happens in the church. You see churches where people start behaving, acting, we're dressing the same, acting the same.
right.
You see,
Dressing the same. So true.
so true. Like
You
even
can
you
tell
see some of the most
where some
popular
people go to church.
popular preachers, like they're all dressing the same. They're all
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
have that same look, that same style. They want to belong. They want to be part of the club,
Right.
right?
Right.
But that's man trying to be like man. You got to be like Jesus.
Jesus,
You got to
man.
be, and when you want to be like Jesus, God will give you godly relationships.
Yeah.
That's what makes a relationship with this great bearded guy be a true friend to a guy like Chris.
Yeah.
A guy like you. We're completely different,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but we have godly relationships.
Yeah.
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 And they happen. And were we looking for them? Maybe. But at the end of the day, like you said, it happened organically because we were modeling after Christ,
Yeah.
and then we were listening
know
to
each other.
Christ,
Yeah.
and then we were vulnerable with one another,
Right. Yeah.
and we were real. Like, hey, I am. This is what I am. This is what you are, and it developed into something beautiful.
But there was a common point too. Like I think, the human aspect of connection has to happen on some level where you have a common interest, right? So
A common bond.
a
We
common
were talking
bond.
about it
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah, like a common bond. Like for instance, Papa Bear may have a proclivity to be drawn towards people who you are structured people who may have even served in the military, who have some sort of sense about excellence in every part of their life, being very organized, being a business owner,
Yeah.
right? SP, especially SP, like there's an order to sports too. Like there's a hierarchy of like the coach to the guy that leads the team to the players.
Yeah.
And then there's the camaraderie that happens amongst the whole team. There's normally a guy that probably is like the ringleader for the team that draws everybody together. Everyone shares the same jokes, that sort of thing. So what's interesting about y'all having your camaraderie and me building mine is that through that situation that happened with that bully, I think by me forgiving him and showing him like I forgive him, that may have opened his heart to be able to receive godly wisdom from another man, because he may have otherwise been turned off. He may have tried to go to the church and while he was at his low,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and he may have felt out of place and not worthy or anything like that. And even someone like that's hurting, that's depressed and is unhealthy, they probably are in need of someone that can lift them up and say, man, you know what, I know you're feeling bad, but you're worth it, man. Like
Yeah.
you're created for greatness.
Yeah.
You've got more to your life than these chains that hold you down. These emotions that make you feel like you're all alone. It's okay.
Yeah.
To feel bad, like, but you have to have someone to like help hold you up.
I wasn't always the most compassionate person,
Yeah.
and I remember God transformed my heart And oftentimes when I used to criticize certain people of certain walks, I had certain prejudices. I remember God saying to me one day that every soul has a value, is so valuable that he died on the cross for it. And it's so valuable that the enemy wants it too.
Yeah.
That's how valuable
Yeah.
a soul is, regardless
Yeah.
of who they are, what walk of life they carry. They could be a homeless guy at the corner or a wealthy man, CEO of a company. That soul is just as valuable.
Yeah.
So when we interact with people, like you said, someone that might be hurting, someone that might come at a sideways, where we're like, hey, I might be Christian, but
I'm from the south side of the kingdom.
yeah, I'm from the south side or whatever. You got to remember, like, he's valuable. God values that soul,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you got to be a representative of that, and of God, be a
Yeah.
representative of Jesus, and man, I heard it was a preacher described it in the sense of being generous. Like, God cannot just be so generous and just be a genie, and just give everybody everything, and and God, in a sense, is like having locked in syndrome, where he wants to give everything, but he can't. So that's why he uses us. We're the arms and the legs of the
Oh,
church.
Yeah.
We're the ones, like, when God is unable because of that person's life choices or that person's free will, God is unable to reach them. We can make that choice and be like, God loves you,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
show them that love. So we're the arms, the words that Jesus wants us to be in the world, and that's how we
Yeah.
can help hurting people.
Hands and
So
feet.
so that's hands and feet, and
Yeah.
that's key. What you did, that's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
Maybe because sometimes we make decisions and we have the free will that will make us turn, not make us, but cause us to turn our back to God. And
Yeah.
then when we turn our back to God, it's harder for God to reach us.
You know.
But
You
when
know.
you have that best friend, you know what I mean? Like, he can be the anchor for you not turning your back from Jesus. He can keep you from drawing away and keep you
That's
from,
true.
from pursuing. He can keep you
That
pursuing.
goes back to the main topic, which
yeah.
is why friends are
Exactly.
important.
You know, what is really interesting about this life experience that I had with this bully is that me and Papa Bear, as well as SP, were watching this movie where this guy bases his life on outside of his business on mentoring guys. And there's this one guy that he has in his circle that he's been around for 15 years, and he tells a story to his mentee, this younger mentee that he brought into his circle, within the last year. He's like, hey, he's talking to him about the concept of forgiveness, exactly what we just talked about, and explains to him that one of the hardest moments in his life was forgiving this guy that killed his son, his 17-year-old son. And the mentor's mentee happens to be around the same age as his son whenever his son died. And as the story unfolds, we find out that one of his mentees that he's had in his corner for 15 years is the guy that he forgave when he killed his son in a drunk driving accident.
Wow, that brought me to tears.
It brought me to tears. I'm just like, oh my gosh.
I mean, that's just, man.
And when you think about Jesus, when he says, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
Yeah.
It's like, man, we think that we take a little tally of whenever we cuss or do little secret sins here and there. But whenever you're on a cross for humanity and you have to say, just forgive them because they're going to sin and they still don't know what they're doing.
Yeah,
He's already forgiven us ahead of time. Why would we not extend that same forgiveness to our friends?
Yeah.
Because the truth is, like, man, I don't know about y'all, but like sometimes my friends just like irritate me. Because sometimes I may be in
need
a
a
mental
break.
time frame. I'm just like,
I mean, it's good to have mental breaks.
we need to put pause on this real quick. And sometimes it's amicable. Hey, You're getting on my nerves too because you keep saying this too much, or you're too energetic, or whatever.
I kind of want to have like, you know, it's different for me because as I'm growing and maturing in my faith, like I'm learning like the importance, obviously, of having the best male friend, because it keeps you closer to God when you have a good relationship with another person that's as eagerly as hungry for God and pursuing.
Yeah.
You know,
Or like he said earlier,
like you said
where
earlier,
the bond is seeking.
yeah. But I just wanted, from my perspective, coming into the faith and just growing these last couple years, for me personally, it was always hard for me to have a close relationship with another male because just due to my trauma and stuff and like my family life and my relationship with my father and stuff.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, as I've grown spiritually, I know I only have one father, right? You know, he's never gonna leave me, which is God.
Or forsake
and now I'm
you,
learning about Jesus and you know living like a Christ, but now it opened me up so much. As in the beginning, you know, going into Bible studies and, you know, in a group of men and trying to just like, sharing like my testimony was so hard because I was, you know, men in general, pride and ego, and they're never taught about vulnerability and everything at a young age. They're talking about just holding your emotions in. You can't cry, all that. But I'm looking in the room, people getting emotional, sharing their testimony.
Right.
And but when they open up, you learn like, man, he has a similar story as me.
Yep.
And maybe we can talk on a more personal level, you know. And as I've grown and started opening up more and being vulnerable, and it's just key. Vulnerability is so key in growing a relationship with another male, you know. And so until I did that, like you said, I have close friends that are family, brother for life. You know what I mean? If I call, he'll pick up the phone and answer, you know, in 2 rings. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like I never knew I would be close to this man, but that's with me growing and maturing, like milk to meat, you know, my progression in the faith. Like, and it just makes me happy, and it just knows that like I'm never alone. One, I got my Father, I got Jesus, the Holy Spirit is gonna pour into me, but I have others that are by my side. I have a family. I have a band of brothers that are going to be with me until I die. You know what I mean? You, Kit, you know what I mean? Y'all are going to keep me. If I'm feeling down one day, I can just give you a call, you know, and y'all would pour into me. You won't, if I'm talking to you about something that I messed up on, it's not going to be no shame or judgment or anything like that. I will, you'll forgive, or if I screw you wrong or something like that, you'll forgive me. I know that, but that's not what my heart is. So I just think it's very important that you have to, it has to grow organically, and I know God will put somebody in your life that's meant, you know, and will help you constantly help you, like, you know, keep your relationship with God. So
the Bible,
I mean, I don't know, I get passionate about this stuff because it's like I have a family now. I'm never gonna be without. I'm never gonna be alone no more. You know what I mean? I love my brothers, and I know they got my back, and I got their back just as much. And I'm just excited about the future, and just excited about this group of men that we have in our community, and how we're pouring into other men. And it's just a change. I think there's a big change in the Christian community, especially in the men. You know, and what we're doing right now is it's not for no reason. We've been called to this, and it's a true joy.
I mean, we've been having these conversations on Tuesdays for over a year and a half, 2 years. Right, and we loved them. We enjoyed them so much that we wanted to bless other men, because we would run into other men that were like, man, I needed this. Man, if I need this.
They would catch just a snippet of what we're talking about, and be like, "Hey, what are you talking? Can I sit down?"
And what's funny too is because as I'm reading the Bible, and we've talked about this before, like our prep and everything, about David and Jonathan, that close relationship, and I wouldn't truly understand like how much it's needed to have that friendship. You know,
Yes.
that intimate friendship that they had, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You know, like David kept Jonathan, like, you know, helped Jonathan keep pursuing, you know, helped him with his discernment, and Jonathan helped David keep pursuing God and kept him held him accountable. They helped each other never run away
Yeah.
from God, right? Because
Right.
Saul he was running from God,
Right.
but David wouldn't run from God. You know,
Yeah.
he wouldn't. Yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, in case y'all listening that don't know what we're talking about, if y'all have ever, you know, heard the story of David and Goliath, you know, David, the shepherd boy that ends up killing the giant, becoming king, taking over King Saul's spot. Jonathan was King Saul's son, and the Jonathan that we're talking about, is used as a really good illustration, really like what a practical friend looks like.
right, yep.
Like when SP says, my brother, he's saying, like, I've got Jonathan's in my corner.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
to have that level of friendship where you have this king that wants to kill your friend that just happens to be your dad, by the way.
Right, yeah.
You know, you're kind of stuck between like two different people that you care about. Like, your dad wants to kill your friend's supposed to become king, and it's inevitable, and your dad is outraged that your friend's supposed to become king, and he may want to hold on to his kingship,
Right.
and your friend just continues to get elevated in his position in society because he killed a giant. And now everyone is like cheering for your friend, and you find this unlikely friendship in this guy that took over position from your dad.
Yeah.
And as this, y'all should definitely read about it in the Bible, for
like
sure.
you said, but why was Saul so jealous of David? Because he knew the Lord was with him, you know,
Man.
at always. And Jonathan knew that. And he was, what was he doing? He was obeying the Lord. He knew that David was anointed. You know, Saul was anointed too, and David wouldn't go. Like, look, he was a mighty warrior. David could have killed Saul if he wanted to, but he didn't. He's like, you know, I'm gonna be obedient to my, you know, to the Lord.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna kill you. You know, but Saul will turn his back on David constantly.
Man, and David even had. Remember that story about how Saul retreated to a cave, went to go sleep, and he was looking for David or something like that in the cave.
Yeah.
And David actually had an opportunity to
Yeah.
kill him on
Yeah,
two
and
occasions.
he didn't. Yeah,
He cut a piece of his robe.
Cut
to
a
show
piece
him
of
that
his robe, and he was
Just
showing him like,
just
"Hey
to show him,
man,
like, look,
I was this
I could
close
have
to
taken you out."
Yeah.
I guess that's called like meekness, strength under control.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lord, like, if y'all read about the story of David, it doesn't stop with Goliath.
Yeah, it doesn't stop.
Like,
yeah.
he slays nations like he's pouring out water, and he's just like,
Yeah.
you just see him like happy.
Yeah.
So this guy David was made very strong because the power that God gave him and allowed him to defeat nations. I mean, eventually he fell too in his own way,
yeah.
but even his fall was a illustration of like how much Jesus loves us.
Yeah.
You know, I think he was called his friend, right? He was called a friend of God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Man after his own heart.
man
that's
after his
amazing.
own heart.
Papa Bear loves David.
Yeah,
you
David's
talk
my
about
boy.
David, man.
Man,
Yeah,
talk
I love
about
it.
David.
I love David.
I thought I was your friend, man.
Yeah.
I thought we were
I thought you
friends.
loved me.
I thought you loved me, Papa Bear.
The
We just got
but
demoted. David's
the
it.
relationship of we're talking about the relationship between David and Jonathan.
Yeah.
And, you know,
Yeah.
in 1 Samuel chapter 18, that's where it talks about how Jonathan loved David like himself. And you know, in John 13:34, it says that God wants us to love each other like we love ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
So that type of love, where you're gonna love that person, that's a godly love.
Yeah.
Because man's love usually is transactional.
What can you do for me?
Man.
I'm going
Right.
right.
Yeah.
What have you
Yeah.
done for me lately?
That type of love you can only get when God invades your heart.
Yes.
Where you're like, man, I'm going to do for this guy like I'm going to do for myself. Like I love him like I love myself.
It was hard for me to forgive that guy.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
but then to get to a point where like, you know what, I'm going to do for this guy like if I was doing for myself.
Extend, yeah.
And you see that within our community, right? Our circle of friends, where we can go out like, man, I got you. Like, hey, don't
Right,
worry
right.
about it. This is
Yeah.
on me.
Yeah.
You know, and we don't do that transactionally. We do that. It's a show of affection.
Yeah.
It's a show of love. Like, man, I love you. So when God invades your heart, you're able to love like that. You're able,
Yeah.
like I told you guys earlier, I wasn't always the most compassionate dude. And
I'm not naturally compassionate either, but the Lord helps
But
me.
I would find myself once you dedicate, hey God, just moving me, and God invades your heart. You'll find yourself in the grocery store and just looking at somebody and just, oh man, you just an overwhelming compassion for that person, and sometimes you just even want to ask them, are you going through something? So what's going on? Or other people that I would in the past criticize for their lifestyles or whatever.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, I look at them and I hurt for them. I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
man, like
Yeah.
this is really, I feel for them. I feel
Yeah.
compassion.
Everybody can be your friend, but not everyone can be on the same
Yeah.
path or go the same direction. Like what's really interesting about, I talked about forgiveness with this bully. When we go back to the story of David being pursued by Saul when Saul was trying to kill him, I think David had to exercise some level of forgiveness whenever he was literally in that cave and took a piece of his robe.
Yeah.
Look,
yeah.
I forgive you.
Yeah, yeah.
Look,
Well,
I forgive you.
and that's another reason. Like we do talk a lot about David because David was a warrior, but David loved God.
He loved him.
He loved
Yeah,
God.
he
Nobody's
loved
going to tell on David because David's going to tell on
him.
himself.
Exactly.
Hey God, I failed you. I love you.
Sackcloth and ashes.
and like
Repentance.
yeah.
Jordan Peterson, how he describes being a man is being capable of violence, but being able to control it.
Yeah.
It's a true sign. It's a true man,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And that was David. That was David in the cave where he controlled himself, self control, or else there's no morality.
Yeah,
in you,
Forgave.
you know?
Yeah. Forgave in that moment.
He forgave in that moment. He self controlled.
I mean, he had to forgive. We suppose that he forgave, but I mean, man, like it takes. I can't imagine how hard that would be.
I'm gonna say something, because
Okay.
I might as well just say it, right?
Just
You know?
say it, bro. Go get out there.
But this is the true testament of, having building relationships organically with other men, godly relationships, right?
Yeah.
right.
Me and Kit, I'll say because he before this podcast we were prepping, he said when I first met you, I wasn't sure if I liked you. but my head, I was like, I just played it off. And honestly, I felt the same way because
Yeah.
I wasn't never drawn to people that were so because you have a very, you can talk to anybody, right? You can strike a
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I was drawn away from people that just were talkative, right at the beginning because I didn't want to share anything because I don't.
Right.
First of all, I don't know you. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't trust anybody.
I don't trust you. I gotta
I don't
get to
know
know
you.
you. So you're asking me all these questions. Let me breathe.
I like that. Though.
Yeah. But I'm just being honest.
Interrogative.
So, and then as we started, meeting at the cigar lounge and stuff like that, and just talking, and then you shared, your testimony. I shared my testimony, and we started pouring into each other. It happened organically. It's natural.
Yep.
Look at we're sitting right here,
Crazy.
in a relationship. You're my brother now.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
I look up to you.
Yeah.
And we're here pouring into other men. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
As we're pouring into each other, this is what it's all about.
Yes.
We're living it. You know what I mean? As I continue to grow, I was like, man, that's my brother. He's
That's
cool.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to call that out
I
because
appreciate that, man.
this is a living testimony right here.
Right, exactly. So for y'all, just so y'all know, if you feel like there's someone in your circle right now that you judge just like we did,
Yeah.
but you feel like you can relate to them and you may be on the same path. Maybe you're being drawn to them for a reason.
Yeah.
They may not even look like you. They may not even have the same interest or whatever. But God is weird. He's like the glue for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I want to bring up John 15:3. This is really important when we're talking about friendships.
Yeah.
It says, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. We're a friend of God, right?
Yeah.
He laid down his life for us.
Yeah.
So how far are we willing to go for our friends?
Yeah.
It may not look like that, like we may not have to actually physically die,
Yeah.
but whenever we're given this godly love towards other people, it's crazy
Yeah.
how God can draw you to
Yeah.
like helping to even protect your brother. I'm not even talking about physically, but like you may actually have to die to some of your selfish ambitions.
Yeah.
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 To
Yeah.
go from drinking milk to eating meat and spiritually progressing and then becoming closer with your group.
Yeah.
Like I was talking about, I think at the beginning, where, you know, you may fall out of friendship with somebody and find yourself back in friendship with somebody because you both grew to a place where you're going in the same direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you may have to leave friendships behind because you have this knowingness about the friendship where you know it's got to die. The
Yeah.
friendship has to die
Yeah.
because it's like a perpetuating destruction.
Yeah.
You're destructive and you're not good for one another.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't extend to just friendships. I mean, it could be the same with a lot of different type of relationship. It could be a familial thing where there's people within your family who may hold ancient wounds or something like that, and you got to cut them off and just pray for them.
Amen. You know, you talk about laying down your life for a friend. We in the United States, I believe we have one of the most capable military in the world. And when you're in war, when you're fighting, yes, everybody is there for a higher calling. But the number one reason why you fight is for your brother. The number one reason why you're willing to give your life, it's not necessarily for the cause. It's for the brotherhood and the camaraderie of the people around you.
Yep.
It has not, like, at the end of the day, like, you're like, why are you doing this? I'm doing this for the guy next to me. And then now, like, we do security. You translate to the security, you know, and we were even talking about doing another podcast about security because our approach to security, we say we have a saying that says 80%, 90% spiritual, 10% tactical, because oftentimes you focus on the tactical and you exclude the spiritual. But we have to have callous on our knees, be prayed up, and be ready to go.
Yeah.
Because that's our last resort. But if we are prepared to take that, pay the ultimate sacrifice. And we're ready. But the reason we do that is for the love of one another.
Right.
Yeah.
To protect one another, to protect
the house.
The house.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I wanted to mention that because in the military, you fight for your brothers.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily fight for the mission, which yes, we do take that into consideration, but it's all about the brotherhood, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was interesting about Jonathan, aside from him being depicted as, you know, a good friend, is he was depicted as being courageous. He was a selfless figure, and he excelled at archery, and he was a defender.
Yeah, he was the king's son, and David at the time was just a shepherd, and he gave him his coat and his sword.
Oh,
When he met, yes, he's like, look, talk about loving David like himself. He's like, hey,
man.
Here, take my stuff, take everything I have.
Man, yeah.
So, yeah, he was definitely selfless.
Yeah.
That's yeah. Take mine. You take my shirt,
And
man.
you know,
Yeah.
and you know they didn't. You know they're. I can only imagine what they were. Right?
Yeah.
They you know, they weren't cheap at the time. They weren't. You know.
Yeah.
And he gave it to David. He gave everything to David.
Yeah. So what's cool about friendships and, you know, having this walk is that you may get friendships in the most unlikely places, man. I appreciate SP and I appreciate Papa Bear, both you guys, man. I love you guys for real. Look for the friendships. If you feel like you need more, a good place to start is building that camaraderie.
Yeah.
But it's got to start somewhere. You can't start if you never try.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
it's gonna take some risk. It's gonna take putting yourself out there, and really just trying to. If you're not a good conversational person, the best thing to do is ask questions to people because
And go to places where you need to talk.
right, and it's easier to find out something when you ask someone about themselves because they could tell you about themselves.
Right.
If you don't know what to tell other people that may be appealing, someone may tell you something that's of interest. Like the way my brain works, I take, information, data, and I'm trying to find like common points with somebody. Like I know my checkpoints are, hey, do you smoke cigars? Check. You lift weights? Check.
You play pickleball?
You play pickleball?
Right,
Big
right,
check.
right.
You love Jesus? All right.
Yeah.
We're
Just hang
good.
out, yeah.
Just find one, man. Like, out of these guys, I'm probably the least interested in sports, but there's way more things.
Exactly.
But you know what? I'm the type of guy like I just understand how valuable camaraderie is. And I like being around people. I just like being around people, period.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we're gonna find something to talk about.
yeah.
It just so happens that the things that we talk about are edifying.
Yeah.
So
So I challenge everybody, if you're watching, inventory your circle of friends.
Yeah.
yes.
And maybe you need to look for some godly friendships
yeah.
like we're talking about. Maybe you need to delete a couple of friends.
Let those friends
you know?
let the friendships drop off, man.
Yeah.
You gotta let it burn. Torch it. But anyways, I feel like we covered a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Everything
agree.
everything we're doing is just building. So for those of you out there, if you like what you saw, you like the content that we're putting out, please hit the bell notification icon. Like, click, and subscribe. Be sure to tune in because we're going to try to bring you fresh content and, be blessed.
That's right.
Amen.
Amen.
God bless you.
Man, God bless y'all.
Peace.